I can hear the music in my head.
Yo, yo, yo! Welcome to Dynasty Bebop. I am Fantasy Footboy.
Yo, and I am Raymond, Mushroom Dynasty.
All right, man. How you doing? How's your weekend?
Oh, just excellent. It's been a good portion of it outside. I volunteered for a program called Reads and Roots, and it's like a program that teaches people primitive skills to live, in closer harmony with the earth. It's pretty cool. We moved some giant rocks and stuff, learned about gardening and all sorts of cool stuff.
Nice, nice. Preparing for those end time situations,
Yeah.
just in case. Nice, nice. Yeah, I went and then did another weekend helping the parents. They're building a new house for their last retirement home here, so I went and helped and gave my expert painter touching the whole house. So got probably one more weekend left. Like I told him, I guess gotta get it done before football season kicks off here in about a week and a half.
Yeah. That's
So
that's
yeah, yeah, for sure. So
priority.
you get a chance to watch any of the games over the weekend?
I haven't been having like access to the game so much, but I discovered on YouTube this awesome channel called like 2023 NFL preseason highlights. It's from the NFL and they condense each game into like 20 like 15 to 20 minutes and I have been watching every one of those and some of them twice, just to see some of the action.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I went back and watched just a little bit of the Browns game to catch a little bit of that. Just because they did have some of the starters out there for a minute. But man, that's really about all I got. Got a chance to really watch. I think I watched some of the Steelers game, just to watch my boy Pickens
Yeah.
make one spectacular grab and move on with his night. That's it's just kind of his MO in every preseason game. He's like, "Hey, mom, watch this," and then and then moves on. It's great,
Yeah.
fun to
No, I
watch.
I think the most important thing we saw happen this weekend wasn't in any of the preseason games, but happened in some of those front offices with those Trey Lance trades and Josh Dobbs. Like these are both like
Hmm.
kind of interesting for fantasy. Um,
Yeah. So, and I think if you know a year ago, I'm like, hey, next year these two guys are going to be traded, and one's going to be a starter, and one's going to be a backup to start the year. Guess which was which? I think we all would have lost a ton of money.
yeah.
Man. But yeah, I do think that the Trey Lance thing, the Dallas, I mean, I know it's on every network out there where everyone's already talked about it till till it's gone blue here. So I I mean I don't mind it for Trey. He's got maybe a little chance to get grow there. I mean, he's still one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league right now. So he's not dead yet. His fantasy value is dead currently.
Yeah.
But if you get Trey Lance and you can't get, I don't know, a couple seconds or an early second or something to get out of him that you feel comfortable with. I mean, I'm also fine hanging on to him. There's going to be an injury. Dak's never one to really finish a season healthy.
Yeah. I can
So
see
I
that
think,
for sure, but I don't even know this year, I don't even know how good for fantasy that opportunity would be for Trey Lance. I think him being there for like a year and then stepping into like a Dak Prescott injury type situation might be a little bit better, but I still think he needs time to get acclimated and kind of just settle down. There's no expectation of him to be the starter now, so I feel like there was maybe some like hope lash like happening there where he's the starter, he's not the starter, who's the starter, like going on. That'll mess with your head. Right now, he's walking into a situation where he knows exactly what's going on. I'm the backup, and if I want to start again, I have to earn it. Like
hmm
so
Hmm.
I kind of think it's a good situation for him. I do think him making some starts early in Dallas not going to be good. Seeing him like 3 plays a game could be really awesome. Kind of like how we saw him at San Francisco at first. They just bring him out, for a couple big plays here and there.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I think I'd rather just him just stick on the sideline, hold that clipboard, l learn the offense the best he can from the side, and Dak is probably like if he could grow up to be somebody, I'm sure at this point he'd love to be Dak Prescott. I mean, he's because as much as we touted Trey Lance as his Konami code quarterback, he was never super fast, and it's kind of like Dak, where it's like he's not blazing quick, but he can get you yards in the ground. He's got a pretty solid arm. He can definitely chuck it when he wants to, and he's pretty accurate. He definitely has more touch and accuracy, quicker decision making than Lance has. But those are all things I think he can learn and grow into a lot more than obviously the physicality traits that he already has. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
wish
I
Trey
don't
Lance
want
the
him in
best.
fantasy. I got rid of all my Trey Lance already, and so I'm happy for him to be in a new situation, but I'm also happy to not be a part of this situation anymore.
Yep, yep, I totally understand. It's been a rough go for Trey Lance truthers. It's been a roller coaster ride, that's for sure. I mean, even in the past 6 months, he's had value, lost it, had value, lost it like 2 or 3 times already. So
I
it's a
mean,
nuts world out there.
yeah, up to like 2 weeks ago, I was certain that he was going to be the long-term starter in San Francisco, even though they were basically shouting from the mountaintops differently that they weren't interested in that. I was like, they spent so much on it. How could he not be? But here we are.
Yep, yep, yep. Well, to help you guys make sure that you don't make the same decisions the 49ers did and trade 3 first round picks to move up for an unknown talent, we're going to talk about here in this kind of the second episode. Kind of, we discussed a little bit last week after we wrapped up that we didn't really get enough of the first round opportunities. We talked about moving out of the first round and what you could do to acquire assets and how to kind of do the double move back and things like that. But we didn't really talk about what you might want to do from the mid round. So the first thing I kind of want to bring up here is going back to the Adeko ADP. Here you can see you clear kind of tier one of players. You got Patrick Mahomes, you got Josh Allen, you got Jalen Hurts, you got Joe Burrow. And honestly, whether you are a complete Herbert truther or not, I feel like you gotta kind of lock him in. I mean, the guy has done a lot of things in his first 3 seasons that put him on track to have a very successful career. He's in very elite company, and I think that they put more weapons around him. I think that he's still got only room to grow and keep going forward. So I think that tier one you can pretty much lock into 1 through 5.
Yeah.
This next tier, Justin Jefferson is in a god tier, but it's not the same as quarterback being so sparse of a position.
Right.
So as much
There,
as I love JJ, he's the top of god tier two.
well, yeah, and there is some lightweight uncertainty going forward with we don't know what his quarterback situation is going to be after this year. Where we do know, like these top tier quarterbacks, they're always going to be able to like get the ball to somebody. Basically, that's why they're up there is they can make plays happen with anybody on the field. A receiver is dependent on the quarterback, so you know, just
Yeah, yep, yep,
we've got like we're starting to have like just hints of doubt of you know the production, whether that's in his control or not. That we don't have within those top 5 picks.
for sure. Yeah, I think that next tier of players, probably goes till about pick number 10, depending upon how you feel about Justin Fields or not. I do think that the Fields, Lamar, Lawrence all have, I mean, obviously Lamar has shown that upside, and you could, if you want to argue that he's in that top five instead of Herbert, I'm fine with that. I totally get, everyone's got their flavor of quarterback. I tend to agree here with the consensus that there's a little gap, and it's a Justin Jefferson sized gap between Justin Herbert and the Lamar Lawrence Fields tier. Well, how do you feel about Justin Fields?
I, I don't really have much Justin Fields. You want him for the ceiling that he brings, but you just don't feel great if he's your dynasty QB1. You're not like certain about your future like you would be a little further up the board. Like even with a Trevor Lawrence or Lamar Jackson, I feel a little bit more certain with those guys. Like I want Justin Fields. I don't want to pay like through the roof and
Hmm.
don't want him to be my QB1. I want him to be my QB2 if at all possible.
Yeah, and I would say if you look at a lot of the warp charts, kind of showing how these quarterbacks perform, it's actually more of a four quarterback tier, with Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, and Burrow. And then there's the next dip down, which you end up with some of the Fields type players. I think, even Daniel Jones, Geno Smith. There's a real interesting tier of quarterbacks that falls in that next little gap. That there's also, there's a big gap in startup ADP as well. So, if you're just looking at startup ADP with those names I gave, you're looking down here at the 702 for Geno Smith. You're looking at the 409 for Daniel Jones. Even the 310 for Tua when he was healthy last year. His wins over replacement was very good. These are all players that were, available in the later rounds and can still produce in that tier two of players. So, as we talk about doing trade backs, you could say, well, I don't want to trade out of the top tier players because I want to compete and I want to win championships and I don't want to just be donating my, $50 to $100 plus to the league for 2 to 3 years while my young guys are developing. I totally get that. So, but when you do a trade out of this first round, and you're trading out of these picks 6 through 10, you have other options to move into when you're acquiring picks. Not only do you have those same future first round picks, but you're acquiring these mid round picks and you're able to acquire a Derek Carr, Brock Purdy, even Sam Howell, who's honestly looked fairly good in preseason. You're able to, take shots on those players, which honestly will give you fairly similar production to probably Trevor Lawrence. I would say the only two in this group that can maybe burn you a little bit would be maybe Lamar and Fields, just because of so much rushing ceiling. And if they stay healthy and produce for a full year, they do still have the ability to break fantasy.
Right.
Um, Just real quick, just as we're talking about these tools, we do kind of want to talk about, how to use them a little bit too. Just in case you're unaware, if you click the little three lines over here, you can open up this tab and you can sort these. So if you just want to go to quarterbacks, it does kind of make it really nice to find your zones of quarterbacks. Um, you know, Easy resource to use. You can kind of do the same thing. You can sort these by ages. One of my favorite things to do is go into the wide receivers. I'll take this. I'll sort the age down to let's say this is 25. So, you can kind of take a look here, maybe some zones. So as you're like, all right, I want to build a young wide receiver heavy roster and focus on these young wide receiver assets that I feel like have um, some value security as well as the ability to possibly move up in rankings. I mean, just as we talked last week, round 5, 6, and 7, if you can move back out of the first 4 rounds and end up with 6 or 7 of picks in these rounds, and walk away with 3/4 of these receivers, I love that. And there's still even some guys down here. Your Elijah Moores, your Jonathan Mingo's, Downs, Bateman, Rice, Sky Moore, Jalen Hyatt. There's still even some dart throw wide receivers that you can. All right, well now I can start looking in that 10 to 12 range. Last week when we were talking like, well, I can throw my 12th round pick in and to maybe make this deal right, like. Yeah, you can, but I'd rather maybe even just move his pick down a little bit further and maybe dip in my toe into the 10, 11, 12 receiver range rather than giving mine up to move into the receiver in the seventh, eighth round. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty cool tool here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't.
so
I forgot there was like an age slider on there. That's pretty cool. I haven't messed around with that.
yeah, yeah, you can kind of do the same thing with their draft class, as well. You can obviously kind of change your rounds. But yeah, I think that's definitely kind of one of my favorite ones to slide around with. Cool. So yeah, so what do you think about Raymond? Like when you're like here in these middle rounds, like what would be a package that you think that you would maybe try to get in these mid rounds?
Are you saying like picking guys wise, or like what
Yeah,
are
if you're gonna trade out of this mid round 6 through 10, sorry, first round 6 through 10 picks.
yeah? Well, so I'm assuming that if somebody's going to be doing that, I don't know where do you think it's most common to trade back with somebody at the beginning or somebody right behind you? Like,
I think it's probably more likely that one of these top 5 teams here are gonna want to double stack their quarterback situation.
yeah, because it's cheaper.
Because
It's cheaper to double stack the quarterback by picking up the end of the first than it is trying from picking up early first if you're in the back. So
Yeah,
okay,
I think at that point it's a lot easier to convince those top owners to like, hey man, you're gonna have Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. Like, man, you're gonna be set up for years. Like, man, I'm gonna need your if it's not third round reversal, like your second, your third, and a future first. If I'm gonna set you up like that, and honestly, it's not that terrible of a deal because I mean they're getting another quarterback at the 212, which they would never have received, and they're just basically using this cost of the 301 in the first to lock down an elite, second elite top tier quarterback.
yeah, definitely.
Once again, that one,
If you're giving them that second quarterback, then I'm not looking at that first as anything less than a late first when they give you a future first. When you just
hmm
basically gave them the ceiling to beat anyone. I would like them to do worse if we're gonna have the pick, but I'm only gonna count it as a late first in there. You think you can get the 2 and 3? I thought that might be too much. I thought it might be like a 2 and a 4 or a 2 and a 5 and the future first, with it being
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear a lot of talk about how you can even lock down, 2, 3, 4 in some of these startups by giving a little bit more in the mid. But honestly, like yeah, I'd be fine, like I might start with like a high offer like that and see how they feel. If you're like, oh, that's a little too much, I might go, all right, well, how about the two? in the six and the seven. Maybe try to get into those two mid round picks again.
Yeah.
May I know sometimes if I'm targeting those early picks, like the 101 per se, um, those around the corner picks are really nice to double tap them. But like I sometimes to get that deal done, go round six and round eight. So that still leaves them a pick around each corner. They kind of feel good about it. They're not losing two picks in a row. They know how valuable that kind of is. So you're taking just one of them, but consecutively in two different rounds. I think that's a good strategy to go for.
Also, when you're trading with somebody on the end and they're like, say it's not third round reversal, and so you're talking back and forth between like the 211 and the 302, and they're willing to do that, it's like three picks difference. A lot of times I'll just like take the hit there because it feels like, oh, that's a third round pick and this one's a second round pick, but it's there's
Yeah.
so I'm not gonna get too picky about that stuff.
Yeah, no, I like that. If you're like, you're offering up Justin Herbert, or not Justin Herbert, but, Lamar Lawrence, Justin Jefferson, and you're like, hey, just give me a three, a six, a 10, and, like maybe we can even talk about a pick in there as well. Because, you're leaving them a lot of their still top elite assets, and they're still getting two first round picks, and they have a second round pick. Um, and then once again, you're going to do the same thing, if you're coming back around here. If you can pull a similar deal here at your 207, 26, 25, 24, any of these picks, you're in that kind of same boat where, like, you got this elite tier, or you're at the second part of the elite tier wide receivers outside your top two. Um, and these guys can slip in and out of this spot pretty quickly. We've seen DK in this spot. We've seen AJ Brown in and out of this spot. Obviously the older guys, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, all worked in and out of these receiver 3 through 7. So, you know, yes, they're nice to have. They're really shiny. They like feel great on your roster, but a lot of times in the warp game, and you're talking about these players, they're all very similar point scores to what you can get in some of these mid rounds.
Yeah. Also, looking at it strategically, we're saving ourselves from some downside by doing this too, because really the people that you pick in the first round, how much more can their value go up? Like there's no round before the first round where when we're bumping back, like, those first round guys can fall. And especially that later half of the first round, it's never the same. So like there's guys falling out of there every year. Where like if we're picking more in that um third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, we're giving ourselves a lot of darts on guys who are going to ascend and who are going to like go up to that first, second round. And instead of like watching a few of our guys fall down, we might have like three or four that hit, especially with a few extra shots that we picked up along the way.
Yeah, yeah, especially the deeper your rosters get, if you're start in those start 12, start 13, deeper flex leagues, depth is key. Best ball, same thing, depth is key. Obviously, if we're talking about these shallow starting lineups, start 8, start 9, start 10, then we're talking about um a slightly different strategy here. But I mean, still, like, there's so much value that you can acquire by people thinking too, like, oh my gosh, we're only starting 9 guys. I had to have all these studs. Let me trade you all my mid round stuff for, an extra second or third round pick because I need, Cooper Cup. And, Cooper Cup's not helping him the year after. So,
I need
you know,
you to have
another
that
set.
attitude.
Yeah, yeah. You see, I think another savvy move too is when you start getting into the fourth and fifth round of your startups, players still have first round trade value.
Right.
and start looking at those teams that are a little bit older. Maybe they like went, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, in a win now type build, and maybe target their 2025 first. It'll be easier for them to want to give that away to add another win now piece to their roster. And, you can probably even swing back around, honestly, 2 rounds later with one of your extra sevenths and grab your 2024 because they're at that point, they know it's the 112. It's nothing could go wrong in the fantasy season. We always know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
So,
Buddy drafted the winning roster like moments after the draft. That's what they're thinking. But also,
yep, yep.
yeah, I'm trying to trade out into a future first all the way down. I think it stops working somewhere in the ninth round. I'm looking at, but like a lot of these guys are guys that you would be seeing. Like if you saw them traded for a future first, you'd be like, all right. And especially if we're looking at taking a 25 or 26 first, like you could get it. I'll throw in a later round pick. Like if I got to throw in a third, and like a future third and my ninth round pick to get a future first, like yeah, give it to me.
Yeah, yeah. The eighth and ninth round. Yeah, if you're throwing future first at me at this point, I'm pretty much I don't need anything else on top of the future first. But if you can throw me a 16th, a 14th, a couple of those in the later round, sure. Because once again, like, it's one of these where I way rather do this in my startup than I would post startup because I can make my own decisions. I know I don't have to worry about, I guess the only kind of mid low value guys that are underrated on your roster are these guys, but you already picked them, so it means you already like them. So it's kind of hard to like pry them off for free, but
Right.
I can draft who I want now and use my value the way I want
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I think that's kind of what our focus is mainly here, in the mid rounds. I feel like, um, I saved the last two picks, specifically because like they are very different, in this year's startup specifically. Every year startup is going to be completely different. As far as how many quarterbacks are going, how many receivers are hyped, and all that goodness. Next year we're going to probably add two, maybe probably I would say you could say we're going to add two first round startup players next year.
Yeah, probably. You know, and
I mean, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is going 112, would you be surprised?
yeah, CD Lamb bumps down at that point. Like, I mean, we like Bijan. Like, I gotta feel like one of the quarterbacks between Lamar, Trevor, and Fields will not be in the first round, like next year at this time.
Yep, but they could also be replaced easily by a Deshaun Watson, and Anthony Richardson.
Right.
Tua could be healthy all year and get back into a late first. Kyler could rebound a lot of value by adding maybe Marvin Harrison and not Caleb to the offense. It's just that's why fantasy is such a fickle game that moves so quickly. It's a lot of these are just taking bets, and it's a good reason why trading out and taking two bets is almost always better than feeling like you know better than everybody else and take the one bet. There's only one bet, and his name is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and that's like you're really just accumulating a lot of risk when you've got those first round guys that really the only space they have to go is down. Like so
Yep, yep,
you when you only have mobility in one direction, then you kind of know what's gonna come.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I did kind of want to, just because had been talking about these trade backs. I've been doing startups. Honestly, we started one back in, oh, geez, I think it was November last year in season. We were doing a startup. We did another one during Christmas break. and then we did one back in February. That one in February, we decided to try a new format. It was one quarterback with two super flex, and it was a start 13 best ball league. Juice scoring. What was that?
How many teams?
Oh, it was 12 teams.
Okay.
Yep. So, it's a lot of quarterbacks are, looking to score points for you in the juiced format for especially rushing quarterbacks. So, in that league, I drafted from the 111 spot, which was already put me out of I believe it went nine quarterbacks and Justin Jefferson were straight off the board. So that kind of left me at that point to kind of pivot a little bit. And we were drafting rookie picks at that point. So I took with the 101 and Jamar Chase to start my draft at the 101 and 102. And then circled back with the 104 in the third round and basically traded out of most of the rest of my draft. Either trading back or backing around. Acquired three first round picks, three second round picks in 2023 and pretty decent team after the draft. I ended up getting Anthony Richardson, Jameer Gibbs with my top two picks because I was able to get Brock Purdy super late in that format before any news was happening. Kenny Pickett, I got very late in that startup. And Anthony Richardson with the 101. So I felt pretty good about my three quarterbacks and was like feeling pretty ready to go. And so, obviously time goes by, things happen, people start pulling their fantasy rosters back up. One of the first round picks I acquired was a team that started off their draft with Kyler Murray in the first, Trey Lance in the second, a bunch of running backs that were now either like in committees or suffering from injuries or not recovering as well as they expected.
Or holding out.
And yeah, holding out, and he was just, basically announced in the chat, "Hey guys, fire sale, burning down my roster," and he starts blowing it up while I hold on to his first and second round picks. So, needless to say, I get a trade offer, and it is from that manager, and he wants his first round pick back. So
Huh.
he offers me his first round pick for or back for Chris Olave. Not
Okay.
bad.
A one first for Chris Olave? That's not a bad deal, right?
Right, right. Which you're like, okay. Typically, a lot of situations I'd feel pretty good about spending a single first on Chris Olave. But, we're talking about potential to start multiple quarterbacks. This guy's obviously already made three trades to commit selling off half of his roster. So
Which
I'm
was
going to need
a bad
more.
process. He should not have made that announcement and started the process before he acquired his first. That should have been step one of what he did. But
Yeah, 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 definitely. Whenever, yeah, needless to say, if you ever start tearing down your roster, make sure you have your first round pick in tow before you start the process because it does not get much easier. I'm just going to bring it up over here. So this is the trade that ended up going down in that league. I acquired Chris Olave, another 2024 first, a 2025 second, all for his 2024 first back, which does look like it'd be a 101. So, really, solid deal, honestly, for a potential top five quarterback, kind of for him in a way, but he definitely had to pay the troll toll to get this boy's soul. So,
yeah, man,
yeah, so
that's
this,
great. That
this,
that is mastery at work right there. That's making somebody pay for their mistakes. And like, you know what? It was not the worst move for him.
yep, yep. And honestly, it's one of those situations too. So, another good lesson of, he sends me this offer for Chris Olave, and I could have been like, well, you don't. I mean, this is Caleb Williams now. This is the 101. Chris Olave is not even close to the value of Caleb Williams, and you're like, blah, 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 and just do nothing. But, send that counter out, Like, honestly, the, the original counter that I sent him was, I think it was Chris Olave, Drake London, and a first. And I was going to give him his first back and a couple ancillary players. It was nothing. I started way higher. It's like, well, if I'm going to give it, here's my dream package. And he countered with Olave in the first, and I threw back the 25 second because I'm greedy. And we did a handshake, and he got his 101, and I got some good use, and still 3 first round picks and 3 seconds for next year. So nothing's really changed for me outside of the fact I got lucky and end up with the guy's terrible first round pick. And I remember even in the draft, people having conversations like, well, I mean, he's got Kyler and Lance. Kyler's going to play, and he's got Baker too, so he'll be fine. Like, he's going to have a really good team. Like, all right, well, that's a bet I'm willing to take because sometimes that bet turns into a haul of stuff that's, you know,
And that's the thing is, if you can trade back and pick up two or three people's first, like now, if anybody in the league happens to do that, if you have three first, you've got a quarter of the league's first. Like there's a 1 in 4 chance that that's going to be a first that you have of the tanking
yeah,
order. So that's
yeah, for sure.
up your odds of trying to get that person that made the mistake by getting as many as you
Hmm. Yep, yep, yep. And I don't know. I'd say probably like one of my last things of advice are, don't wait for the trades to come to you. You know, the early bird gets the worm, and go out there and send those offers. There's information to be had in every offer, whether it's a smash decline and no comment, or a terrible counter back to you, or maybe a great counter offer, or they smash accept. You just never know. So go out there and shoot your shots.
The trade block does nothing. It just, if
Yeah,
anything, it decreases the value of the person a little bit because now they know you want to move them. And so just get
yeah,
in people's inboxes with offers. Just, even if you're like, you know, don't make people bad offers, but just like also don't look at offers as good or bad. Like it's a starting point, and it might not be exactly what you want, but it's not a reason to get an attitude. It's a reason to like work on it and like, okay, this person's willing to talk. They want to talk trades with me. Like exciting. I got an
hmm
opportunity here.
yep.
So
I'm working on a Christian Watson trade right now, where I'm trying to offload Christian Watson in a pretty deep receiver room for a 24 first plus. Because I feel like at this point, the upside for Watson is tempting enough that it's a late first. I think he was in the championship last year, so I'm adding a good piece to a Jamar Chase led wide receiver room already. We got here because I was trying to offload a bunch of my guys to get into his Jamar Chase to stack with my Joe Burrow, but he was not wanting to have it. But he's interested in the first plus, depending upon what the plus is. So it's like, okay, well, that already tells me that he values Christian Watson as more than a first round pick, or his first round pick that he currently has. So that's already given me enough information that like we can get a deal done now. Like now that I know that, like whether the plus is, you know, it's not going to be, Damian Pierce plus is,
no, but
or
maybe
anything.
Jalen Warren or maybe somebody to
Hmm.
like, you know, somebody a
Yeah,
little.
Kenny Gainwell, depending on how they feel about something like that, take some of those shots. Even like a Devonta Foreman, something is in a running any RB on the 53, right? So that kind of strategy is solid as well because especially in these startup or in these start sit leagues, you know you know when those running backs are going to be able to give you those point scoring weeks a lot better than the boom week for the receiver three on any given offense.
Right.
Cool, man. Well, I had one last thing. I don't know if you got a chance to check it out or saw this on the old X machine or not, but did you see that the Dynasty Nerds Dynasty GM is going to be incorporated into the Sleeper app?
I okay. Now that you say that, I do remember hearing that a while back. Um, that is
Yeah,
pretty awesome though.
that's big news. And I feel like, honestly, in a lot of ways, man, it's gonna do a lot of things because, it's
Much
basically gives
better.
you, yeah, it's gonna be harder to grab those first round picks of those mid to late tier teams, I feel like, because they're gonna really like see that graph of like, oh, Dynasty Nerds doesn't think I'm good, and like, well, that could be Marvin or whoever. So like, they might start holding on to those a little more. It's definitely gonna educate gamers more. As guys that have been playing for good 10 plus years now. I mean, even just adding targets into the stats block, I know changed a lot for how people play fantasy in our like smaller community. They didn't they see like a player get 5 catches and be like, oh well, he only got 5 catches, but it's like, oh, he was getting like 12 targets. Like, this dude's gonna happen. Like those were a good way to recognize players early on when people didn't see that. But now it's incorporated right into Sleeper and incorporating this Dynasty GM into it too. Great for Dynasty nerds. Congratulations on getting that whole thing off the ground and incorporated. That's got to be a huge boost for them and for Sleeper, for Dynasty, for everything. I think it's good news.
It's good. Yeah, I needed some good news. I needed a boost because I don't know if you noticed or not, but in several of our leagues, I broke up with my one true love, Davis Mills. I let him run wild and free on the waiver wire. Yeah, it's a sad day. You know, I had too much Davis Mills. I rode him, as high as he went, and I should have sold him. But let it be a lesson learned not to let that value die. It was hard to let him go because I was like, I could have gotten a first for him last year before the season, and like now you get nothing, or even getting a second for him, like a 25 second for him before the season last year would have been awesome. But I dropped him for like Rico Dottle or somebody, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna get the same value out of that. I know, but like it was a release that had to happen.
Yeah, it feels good to get that off. But I mean, hey man, I remember that 2021 startup we were in together, and I took Trey Lance
This
and you
guy's
took
gonna
Davis
happen.
Mills, and pretty sure that you ended up winning that via long run, even whether you ended up dropping the guy or not. You still got a year and a half of production like out of a
I got
dude
to
you
rub it
got
in
in the
your face.
20th round.
I was like, look how much better my quarterback did this year than yours, and you're like, wait till next year.
Yep, I'll just keep saying it, I guess, until he's eventually Geno Smith and he gets the starting job in some other team. It's
Well,
gonna happen, though. It's gonna happen, I promise. Cool,
awesome.
man. Well, yeah, I gotta get heading down to Cincinnati and you know, do the old work and work. And usually, I think this is my last Monday night here at work. I think moving forward here, it's only football and
Ba-ba.
football, then Christmas, and then it's 2024, and then it's just prospect talk.
There you
And
go.
then we're back at it again. So cool, buddy. Well, once again, I appreciate everybody stop by. Don't forget, do the like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Don't forget that we'll have some links below for the Dynasty FF as well as a link to our Discord. We're starting to get that popping back up. Feel free to join in. Especially those of you that are in a ton of Discord leagues, come check out a smaller Dynasty Discord like ourselves. You can ask us about trades and don't have to worry about your other league mates maybe finding you and still find a good community. We've got like what about 12 to 15 people in there right now, and
Yeah,
hopefully grow that back. Grow up to about 25 to 50 here in the next month or so. That'd be really cool. Um, well, I'm the fantasy footboy, and this is
Dynasty Bebop with Mushroom Dynasty.
Mushroom Dynasty Fantasy Footboys, the Dynasty Bebop. We out.